Good morning, beautiful people. In January, I told this board that 74% of principals indicated they do not have the staff to reopen safely. When we asked them how many staff they needed, each school on average needed 7 teachers and 5 paraprofessionals. When I finished my statement, a member of this board asked a question that gave the CEO a chance to respond to principals' concerns. But instead of responding, she went back to her talking points and said, and I quote, "We're looking at the science on reopening. And the science says that schools can reopen with proper mitigation strategies," unquote. Dr. Jackson, what we need you to understand is that we believe that. We want our kids back in school, and we know that schools can reopen with proper mitigation strategies. We absolutely believe that. One of the major problems, however, is that schools cannot implement proper mitigation strategies if they don't have the staff to implement them. And nearly 75% of principals are telling you that they do not have the staff. Most schools don't even have the staff to implement a decent instructional program. For example, tens of thousands of students are going to return to so-called in-person learning only to sit in a classroom to look at a screen so they can learn from a teacher who's teaching from home. And the CEO and the mayor are not mentioning that extremely important fact when they talk to the public about reopening, which puts principals in a horrendous situation with parents when their children's experience in so-called in-person learning doesn't match the expectations that the mayor and CEO have been giving to these parents. Principals saw me clearly communicate the staffing issue at the last board meeting. Then they saw the CEO clearly ignore it and return to her talking points. We held a town hall with more than 200 principals to figure out what to do next, and everyone got behind this idea of reaching out to members of the Board of Education. And I want to take a moment to say right now, thank you to those members of the board who were open to hearing the concerns of the district's principals. I also encouraged our principals to have a conversation with the source of their concerns, the Chief Education Officer, the Chief Executive Officer, and Mayor Lightfoot herself. Toward that end, I'm extending that invitation to you both, and will reach out to the mayor as well. I will close with a few words about principal eligibility. The existing eligibility process is already deeply problematic, but I don't know if I've ever seen a more anti-democratic document from a public institution than CPS's proposed new principal eligibility policy. The power to determine the eligibility of administrators to work in public schools resides with the Illinois State Board of Education. State law gives CPS limited authority to impose additional criteria for principals to work in CPS. In 2009, Chicago Public Schools adopted a principal eligibility policy that creates a pool of educators who are certified by the district to be CPS principals. If you're in this pool, you can be a CPS principal. If you're not in the pool, you can't. District management has proposed changes to this policy. And Section 2C of these changes states, and I quote, "The chief executive officer or designee may suspend a membership in the principal eligibility pool for any reason," unquote. No due process, no criteria, no arbitrator, no evidence. The existing eligibility policy already gives the CEO dictatorial powers. And these changes seem to be designed to make that dictatorship official. If you think that's a harsh statement, let me read that proposed new policy again. "The chief executive officer or designee may suspend a membership in the principal eligibility pool for any reason." No criteria, no arbitrator, no evidence, no right for a principal to defend herself, no witnesses, no constitutional due process whatsoever. This policy is inexcusable. Principals are already certified by the state of Illinois. The only reason Chicago created this extra process in the first place is to violate the statutory rights of local school councils to select their principals. The district violates that right by limiting LSC choices to a tightly curated, narrow list of district-approved candidates. So the LSC can't choose from candidates that the state approves unless they're on CPS's list. We'll be using the public comment process to submit a more thorough analysis of the anti-democratic and arbitrary nature of this policy. In summary, we ask that you, the board, not only reject these changes, but throw out much of the existing policy as well. And to the CEO, Principals need you to put your talking points down for a minute and acknowledge the staffing problem that exists in their schools and modify this reopening plan to account for the fact that there are schools that simply do not have the staff to fully reopen safely.